Hi, Booktube. I'm Laura, and this is Laura by the Book. Alright, so I am new to Booktube, and this is going to be my first official video on my channel, so I thought it would be perfect for me to do the Booktuber Newbie Tag. I'm not sure who created this tag originally. I've seen so many people doing it that I can't trace it back to who started it, so I'm sorry I can't give credit to that, but here we go. Let's see how I can answer these questions. The first question, why did you start a Booktube channel? I feel like every video I've watched, everybody pretty much says a variation of the same thing. We all love books and we want to talk about books with other people. I have been part of online book discussions for years now. I checked and I joined Goodreads back in 2011, and then I've also been listening to a lot of podcasts about books. I listen to Book Riot, has all the books about new releases every week. I love listening to Anne Bogle at What Should I Read Next. I listen to the Book Cougars, which, here's their tagline, 2 middle-aged women on the hunt for a good read, which that's me, so it's perfect. So anyway, I've been doing a lot of podcasts. I also joined Litzy, which I don't see a lot of talk about Litzy, which I'm kind of surprised. Litzy is an app, and there is a great community at Litzy where it's basically, I've heard it described as Instagram for books. Basically, people talk about books. Everybody who is on Litzy reads books, and so there's all kinds of bookish conversation. There are readathons, there are TBRs, there are challenges. So if you haven't heard of Litzy and you want to check it out, I highly recommend hopping over, looking. It should be available in your app store. It's called Litzy, L-I-T-S-Y. So I've done these bookish things online for a while, and I'd never really gotten into Booktube. And I think the first time I heard about it was on What Should I Read Next? There was someone who was a guest on the show who was also a booktuber, which I can't remember the name now, but they were talking about Booktube. I was intrigued, but I didn't immediately check it out. But then about 6 to 8 months ago, I decided I'm gonna see what all this Booktube talk is about, and so I started watching videos, and immediately I was sucked in, and now I can't let a day go by without checking out the Booktube videos. I absolutely love it. When I first joined, I thought, there's no way that I could do something like this. I just couldn't do it. And then the more that I watched, I started thinking, you know, I could do this. I could totally do this. If there's anything I can talk about, it's books. So I thought this is perfect for me. So here we are, Laura by the Book. This is question number 2. What are some fun or unique things you can bring to Booktube? This is a really hard question to answer, and I have a feeling that really this is one where time will tell, because I don't really know. One observation I've made is that I tend to be a little bit older, or maybe a lot older, than a lot of the people on Booktube. I'm at a different stage in my life than a lot of people. I have 3 sons who are basically grown. My youngest is 17. He's only got 1 more year at home before he leaves. And so my husband and I are getting ready to head into the empty nest stage of life, which is really exciting because it's a whole new adventure for us. But that is a completely different place from a lot of people on Booktube. I think that makes me a little different, and I think it also does affect my reading. What I'm interested in reading now is different from what I was interested in reading when I was 23. It makes me different, but it shouldn't stop me from using Booktube. Question number 3, what are you most excited about this channel? I am really excited for 2 things. First of all, I'm really looking forward to meeting people, getting to know other bookish people, and having conversations about books. There's one thing that I love to do, and that's talk about books, and so I'm looking forward to meeting people who are as into it as I am. There are people in my real life who read some, but I don't think there's anybody who reads as much as I do and that loves it as much as I do. And so to find a group of people that do love it as much or even more than me really is something that I'm excited about. The other thing that I'm excited about is I've realized that I tend to read the same kinds of things, and I don't read other genres, and I need to break out of that. So I'm hoping that by interacting with people on this channel, maybe some of you can give me ideas of things that maybe I should check out that I'm not even aware of, and so that'll help me to branch out in my reading. I'm specifically thinking I don't read a lot of thrillers. I don't read young adult and I don't read fantasy or science fiction, which right there, a lot of people on BookTube are like, what are you doing here? But I'm not unwilling to read it. I just haven't been able to find things that work for me. And so I have a feeling that if I could talk with you about what I like and what I don't like, maybe you can recommend some things to me that'll change my mind, and I'll start reading those other genres, because I really would like to find some that I like. Number 4, why do you love reading? I have been reading basically my entire life. I live in the American Midwest. I have a job and a family and kids, and basically your generic life. I don't have a lot of exciting adventures or things like that in my life, and so I read so that I can experience adventures that I don't have in my real life. I love escaping to other times and places, becoming other people, and having adventures that I wouldn't have in my regular life. And that, to me, that's the entire reason I read. For me, it's about the escape. It's about having experiences that I wouldn't have otherwise. Number 5, what books or book series got you into reading? And by into reading, I'm assuming that means that really got me interested, because I was already reading at this point. It didn't start me reading, but I remember when I was in 5th grade, and I loved going to the school library, and I went, and I don't know if it was me or one of my friends, but one of us discovered Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret by Judy Blume. One of us checked it out, and then we basically passed it around all the rest of my friends, and we all read it. And that book, I still remember feeling like this is the first time I had ever read a book where I felt like I connected with the character. This was a real person. This was not like some of the stories you read in early elementary school, at least back then. Things are better now than they were then, but they weren't like real people. They didn't experience the things that real people experience. But here in Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret was a girl who was about my age, going through about the same kind of things that I was. But also, she lived on the East Coast, and she was Jewish, and so there were other things that were involved that were completely foreign to me living in Indiana. So I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And from that point on, I was all about the people that I would find in the books. Another important, it didn't get me into reading, but it definitely was an important point in my reading, is the Harry Potter series. Now, I am old enough that by the time Harry Potter came out, I already had 2 kids. I have 3 boys, and when my oldest was, I don't know if he was quite 10 years old, I decided to start reading the Harry Potter series. And I think at that point, there were already 1 or 2 books out. I read the books out loud to my sons, and I'm a firm believer in reading to your children anyway, and you don't stop just when they get to where they can read themselves. You keep reading to them, because it shows them how important reading is, and you share that together. So I started reading the Harry Potter series then. Little did I know I would end up reading all 7 books to my kids whenever they would come out, and it became something that we shared. And now my son is 27 years old, and still to this day he talks about how that experience was so important to him. He loves Harry Potter. He did go and read it himself, and my other sons did too. And it was a bonding moment for us, and it was an adventure. We would read for hours over summer vacation, but then later we would talk about what the different characters are doing, and what do we think is going to happen, what's going to happen in the next book, that kind of thing. And it is something that I can't imagine having not experienced. Number 6, what questions would you ask your favorite booktuber? I would probably ask, how do you do it? I'm really curious about the behind the scenes kind of thing, how do you plan? How do you decide what you're going to talk about? What kind of things do you do to prepare? How do you do the editing? All of that sort of thing. I'm just curious, because you see the videos, and so you see how people do that, but I'm curious about the behind the scenes. So if anybody has any suggestions for a new booktuber, please comment and let me know. All right, number 7, what challenges of having a booktube channel do you think will be the hardest to overcome? Scheduling. I work full-time in an office job, and I have an hour commute either way, so my Monday through Friday is packed. So my plan is to primarily film and do things on the weekend. I'll try to post maybe during the week, but I'll film and do a lot of the work on the weekend. Juggling it all, coming up with ideas. I'm still learning how to edit, so that's a challenge. But I feel like I've never been one to shy away from learning new things, and I feel like I can do this. I just have to gradually learn all the ins and outs of it. So I'm looking forward to that. Number 8, when did you start reading? I was thinking about this, and it's hard for me to remember exactly when I started. I always have thought that it was around 4. I know it was before I went to school. My dad was an elementary school teacher, so he would bring books home from the school library, and so I was very familiar with Curious George and Dr. Seuss and all of that sort of thing before I went to school. And I remember one of my fondest and earliest memories is, I believe it was one of my aunts got me a book. I think it was for Christmas, and it was basically a picture book, I realize now, but at that time I just knew it was my book. It was my own book, and I had books, like I said, from the library, but I had never had my own book before, and for some reason that was like saying, you are now a reader. You have a book of your own that you can read. And I remember sitting in my bedroom, in my little twin bed, with my yellow sheets with the jungle animals on it and my bedside table lamp, reading before I'd go to sleep at night. And I thought, now I'm grown up because I can read, and this is what grown-up people do. And in case you're wondering, the name of the book was Big Macs by Ken Platt, and it was a mystery, which I have to believe is what has started me on my lifetime love of reading mysteries. So more on that to come. Question number 9, where do you read? I will read just about anywhere, especially while I have audiobooks. I can go anywhere and read. My favorite places to read are in the morning. I love reading in my bed right next to the window, and I can look outside. That's one of my favorite things to do on the weekend, is to stay in bed in the morning and read. I also like sitting outside in the summertime, sitting outside on the patio. We have a fire pit, and in the evening we'll sit by the fire pit and read, or in the early morning I'll go outside and listen to the birds while I read. And the other place I love to read is in the recliner right next to the fireplace, especially in the winter with the fire going, and if there's a Christmas tree there too, that's even better. So those are my favorite places to read. And the last question, number 10, what kinds of books do you like to read? I already mentioned I love to read mysteries, so mysteries is one. I will say that I have found nowadays they tend to lump together mysteries and thrillers. I'm not a real big fan of thrillers because I don't like to get scared, and so I just feel like life is scary enough that I don't want to ask for more fear. I kind of have anxiety issues anyway, so to read something that instills that sense of anxiety is just not a pleasant thing for me. So if it's a mystery where it's all about putting the puzzle pieces together and solving the crime or whatever, that's fine. Actually, I love that. But when it crosses a line into really being scared that something violent is going to happen, that's where I draw the line, and I don't like that. Now, I'm willing to go right up to that line. I just don't want to be scared. I don't like horror or really scary thrillers. One thing I do read a lot of is historical fiction. I read historical and contemporary fiction a lot. I think historical is probably more of a favorite because it gives me the chance to go to any different era. I love like 1920s. Flappers and that sort of thing. I like World War II. I like some Civil War era, depending on what it is, and really just any era. I love going into these other worlds that I couldn't possibly go into in real life, so it gives me a chance to imagine what it would be like to live in those things. All right, so that's a little bit about me, and you'll probably find out more in the videos to come. I plan to share all kinds of things. I've got several videos planned, and I would love for you to come back and join me. Please, if you feel like it, subscribe, and don't forget to click the notification bell so that you'll be notified whenever I post new videos. And if you have any other comments, any other suggestions you might have for a new booktuber, things that I might need to know, please comment below. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks. Bye.